Fetterman supports taxpayer-funded drug dens and the complete decriminalization of illegal drugs, including heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, and ultra-lethal fentanyl. And by the way, he takes them himself.
You just heard Donald Trump accuse Fetterman, in fact, defame Fetterman as someone who takes drugs like fentanyl. Now, of course, Fetterman is a candidate running against Trump's preferred Republican candidate, Mehmet Oz, for a Senate seat in Pennsylvania. And Oz is not performing so well in the polls. So, of course, there you see Trump stumping for Oz in an attempt to save him in this election. We'll see if it plays out for him. But nonetheless, here he is just straight out saying something that's incredibly defamatory. And what I'm curious about, Cenk, before we go on to more of his insane speech, is whether Trump could be sued by Fetterman for that. Because he didn't say, I think Fetterman takes fentanyl. He said that he takes these drugs when there's absolutely no evidence indicating that he does. Public officials are actually allowed to lie in public. Like if he was still in elected office, he could have made that statement without any fears of legal ramifications, any fears of like a defamation lawsuit, but he's not an elected official.
Yeah, so look, he's in the political arena. I think that that lawsuit would be very difficult. But I think politically, there's something that's, as usual, driving me mad because of the gaslighting. So that was an outrageous lie to say, that somebody's taking meth and fentanyl. I mean, imagine for a second if Joe Biden picked a random Republican senator was like, I think Mark Rubio is on fentanyl. I think Ted Cruz is doing meth. And he does not, he just says it, right? No evidence, no nothing, he just says it and he's like, not a big deal, they're doing meth. I know they're doing meth, I know they're doing fentanyl. That's all the country would talk about. And they would say, what an outrageous statement, he needs to apologize. This is unbecoming, not befitting of a president. How could he? I mean, we talk about it for years. Remember when Biden made up that Rubio and Cruz were on meth and fentanyl, right? I mean, he said semi-fascist once, they're still talking about it. How could he? This is outrageous. And that's just his opinion, right? Trump says it's barely a news story. Why? Because we all know, including his own fans, we all know he's a pathological liar. He lies nonstop. No one takes him seriously because he's a goddamn clown, right?
Yeah.
But they then turn around and go, no, he's perfectly credible. No. Oh, we're saying that Trump is lying. That's not neutral. No, that'll get you fired on CNN now.
Yeah,
the double standard is insane.
Well, the lunacy has been fully normalized. So when you say this didn't even get much attention, it's because his lunacy is normalized. It's another day. It's Tuesday, right?
Yeah, but then when you call him a lunatic, his fans are like, how dare you? You have no evidence of that. A liar, he's never lied in his life.
You can get upset at us calling him a lunatic. He's a lunatic. You can't go around accusing people of doing drugs that they're not doing and there's no evidence of them doing.
Can we
That is defamation.
Can
right?
we just say,
I mean, we've speculated that Trump and other politicians, not just Trump, might take some stimulants before doing speeches. But it's one thing to say, oh, he seems like he's sniffling a lot. Seems like he might have snorted something prior to this speech. That's different than saying like, Donald Trump is doing cocaine. You can't say that. There's no evidence indicating that that's the case.
Yeah, guys, there's all the difference in the world between making fun of Charlie Kirk. We're constantly doing this while talking. Right, okay, then saying, I know Charlie Kirk does meth. I don't even know what drug makes you do this. I don't know, okay? So, but Trump, former president of the United States, says it, and everybody says two things that are completely contradictory. Well, it doesn't count because everyone knows Trump lies all the time, so you can't take him seriously. And two, Trump never lies, and I can't believe the fake news says that Trump lies. It's unfair and it's not neutral. You can't have it both ways.
Well, there's more from his speech. So let's take a look at the next portion of it where he attacks Fetterman on his views on criminal justice reform.
He's a raging lunatic hell-bent on springing hardened criminals out of jail in the middle of the worst crime wave in Pennsylvania history. He wants everybody out of jail. And by the way, he wants to get rid of your police.
But does he? Does he? So like, obviously I don't trust anything Trump says, and for good reason. And so I looked into Fetterman's views on criminal justice reform, and he's absolutely right on criminal justice reform. I'll give you a few examples. So one of the specific issues that he came out in support of was, pardoning all the people that are serving time in prison for simple marijuana possession, which is insane. So this is from 6 days ago. It was posted on the website for Pennsylvania's governor. Governor Wolf and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman announced effort to quickly pardon thousands of Pennsylvanians from marijuana-related convictions. These are nonviolent individuals who are serving time behind bars for possession of a plant. And so I totally agree with him on that. But
that's weird. It's not fentanyl or meth.
It's not fentanyl.
It's almost like he made that up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And later, when he talked about how he wants to let go of all the murderers and rapists, and it turns out it was just people who smoke marijuana, it almost seems like Trump made that up too.
Yeah. Well, and the details in that press release that was posted on the governor's website said this: Governor Tom Wolf and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman announced a coordinated effort for a one-time, large-scale pardoning project for people with select minor, nonviolent marijuana criminal convictions. Look, Americans love pot, including many of the Americans who support Donald Trump. Do they think they should spend time in prison for their love of marijuana? I think not. Now, if you go to Fetterman's website and look into his views on criminal justice reform, he's not some abolitionist. He's not someone who wants to do away with policing, do away with prisons. In fact, he writes, as your senator, I will fight for a criminal legal system where everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. I will work to make sure that serious crimes receive serious punishment while also alleviating the burdens placed on prosecutors and judges by focusing on effective diversion programs for nonviolent offenders and prioritizing sentencing reform. That is the most measured view on criminal justice reform imaginable, but it doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter to Donald Trump, whose candidate is flailing, okay? Oz is suffering immensely because of his own terrible candidacy, and Trump is trying to save him, and he's trying to do so with lies about Fetterman.
Yeah, look, Fetterman's position is exactly down the middle of the lane. So I can't imagine that there's too many people in the country, Republican or Democrat, that disagree with him. Yes, there's a super far left fringe who says no prisons, Shangri-La, I'm sure the criminals will be lovely after therapy. Let's just take a chance and let them run wild. I'm not in that camp, as you can tell, and neither is anyone else. There's 7 people on the internet that are in that camp, and that's it. And on the right wing, they say no, marijuana, some say, not very many either, some say no, marijuana is super dangerous. If you ever even looked at it, you should be put in prison for a long time, lock everybody up. But the overwhelming majority of Americans say, no, let the guy on marijuana possession go. That's the equivalent of having a Coors Light. No one cares. You're costing us money. You're taking away their freedom. And by the way, we all smoke pot. On the other hand, they don't want to let murderers and rapists go. That is exactly Fetterman's position. It's not 1% controversial, but it sounds controversial when Trump lies, as he did in that speech, and says that Fetterman wants to let murderers, rapists, and child molesters out of jail. Not remotely true. Just made it up. And if you ask a right winger, they'll say, well, obviously he made that up, but he never lies. Okay, now there is one other clip from this speech that I think he lost his own audience too on this, but yes. It's funny. But is it, so let's watch and see if it has significance.
Yes.
It's a disaster. He comes in with a sweatsuit on. I've never seen him wear a suit. A dirty, dirty, dirty sweatsuit. It's really disgusting.
So we've told you this before. One of the things that triggers the right-wing mind, and especially Donald Trump's, is disgust. It's number 1 actually. Fear is number 2. These are based on studies. And so if he doesn't like something, he'll always call it dirty. Immigrants are dirty, John Fetterman's dirty, his sweatshirt's dirty, right? But if you notice, the crowd, which loves to laugh at the most insignificant things that Trump says, didn't find that amusing at all. Why? Because they're Americans, they wear sweatshirts. They don't think sweatshirts are dirty, dirty, and anyone who wears them is poor, middle class, yuck. That's what Trump is actually saying.
Now, this story just broke, and it's not good for Oz. All right, so you guys ready for it? Jezebel reporting on an interview that has been unearthed featuring Dr. Oz weighing in on the issue of incest. This is from 2014 when he was on The Breakfast Club. Host Angela Yee asked Oz to weigh in on a question sent in by a listener about someone struggling with an incestuous relationship. I'm going to ask you this, and you tell me if this is safe for this person, okay? Yee prompted Oz. Well, he said, Yee, I can't stop smashing my cousin. That means sleeping with. Thank you, Yee. So that was the question, right?
Yeah.
And then she continued to read out the question. We hooked up at a young age and now in our 20s, she still wants it. No matter how much I want to stop, I always give it to her. Help me. What advice would you give that person? But Oz took it in a direction that you probably didn't expect. Oz said, if you're more than a first cousin away, it's not a big problem. Yee responds with, okay, so second cousin is fine to smash? Charlemagne says, it's so funny because I knew that. DJ Envy says, how did you know that? Charlemagne says, because I'm from the country. And Oz says, yeah, it's fine.
It's not a standard answer, okay?
Smashing cousins, Dr. Oz in favor.
But okay, so look, in reality, in the old world where Dr. Oz is from, not just Turkey, but a lot of immigrants, are there second cousins that are married to one another? Of course. Is it also true in the country, as Charlemagne said? Yes, okay. Is that a thing you should say and celebrate on air? Probably not, right? Now, let's flip it. Let's say that Fetterman had said it. What would the right wing say today?
Oh, they would.
They'd be like, oh, he's a groomer. Look at what he's saying. He wants incest. And then they would go, they'd call him a fan of incest for the rest of his life. And they would never, ever stop. So you'll see this Dr. Oz story, people get a giggle out of it, and then you'll probably never see it again. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.